That's a gay-ass podcast.
What? That's a gay-ass podcast. A what? A really, really, really gay podcast that we call That's a Gay-Ass Podcast.
That's a gay-ass name for a gay-ass podcast.
Welcome back, y'all, to That's a Gay-Ass Podcast. The podcast that asks, whose fault is it that you're gay, bitch? It is me, Eric Williams, and Carson Kressley is this week's stunning guest. It's kind of a pinch me moment, if I'm being on with you, about having Carson on. I would have watched him on Queer Eye growing up, not knowing a single gay person, and wondering if I would ever be as funny or as fabulous as him. And I'm not saying that I am, but I am saying that I am, hopefully, almost as gay as he is. In this episode, we talk about Carson doing regional theater. We talk about the costume reveals on Drag Race and how he actually feels about those big boxy lukes. We also talk about how he is Amish adjacent and the gorgeous parties he throws involving hot gay sluts and Kristen Chenoweth. I hope you enjoy this episode with Carson Kressley. Carson Kressley is on That's a Gay-Ass Fucking Podcast. Carson, how's your gay day going? What an honor to have you.
It's been pretty gay so far, and it's getting gayer by the second now that I'm here. So thank you for proverbially having me.
Oh, we are thrilled to HAVE you. And Carson,
thank you.
I need to first bring up, obviously, many of the credits that our listeners are going to be so excited to hear about, spanning from Queer Eye from the Straight Guy, of course, to the RuPaul's Drag Race. But I think the number one we've been messaged about is your star turn in the production of Damn Yankees at Ogunquit Playhouse.
Oh.
Tell us everything, Carson. How did it feel to be the dev?
Well, it came pretty naturally to me. I have a devilish personality on the side. I feel like I was a good devil because I was a sassy gay devil. And I wasn't a traditional, like, just, straight on mean, boring devil. So that was fun. I love Ogunquit. And I don't know if your listeners know of it, but it is like one of the few standing regional summer theaters left in America.
Yeah.
And I know from our little intro conversation that we had offline that the Muni in St. Louis, and it's that same vibe. And I actually was going to ask you about this. I worked with, before I did Damn Yankees at Ogunquit, I did The Drowsy Chaperone.
One of my favorite shows I ever have seen.
Phenomenal show.
Wait, did you do Man in Chair?
I did Gay Man in Chair, and it was my first. It's kind of a big deal. I mean, it's a regional theater. However, it is one of the most awarded. In my dressing room, the photo of the people who have been there was Betty Davis and Ethel Barrymore. So I was like, okay, this is no joke.
Oh no, she is a storied theater. I didn't know that you were, honestly, I brought that question first up because I did not know that you were a theater queen, and so many of our listeners are Broadway monsters. Yeah,
I wasn't a theater queen like so many. I dabbled in some college theater. I was terrible. I only got really small, awful parts. I was in Chekhov's Three Sisters at Gettysburg College. I played the gym teacher. I had one line. I walk in and I say, "A silver samovar," and then that's the last you see me of the entire play, I think. Maybe I have two other lines. And then
so this was a modern take of Chekhov's Three Sisters?
This was just a classic take of Chekhov's Three Sisters. There's
a gym teacher in that?
Well, there was some kind of athletic soldier who I Sue Sylvestered about with. So that was that. It was pre-Sue Sylvester, but that's the vibe
I'm sure you made a meal out of it, Carson. I mean, if ever you walk on a stage.
I did. And I was also the Bishop Henry T. Dobson in Anything Goes, also the Gettysburg College production. So I never got really big roles or super fun roles, actually, but I did chew up whatever I was given and spit it out.
Well, the Man in Chair and Drowsy Chaperone.
That's major.
That's a major, B, perfect role for you. And
thank you.
C, whatever lucky gay girl saw you play Man in Chair at Ogunquit Playhouse, they were the lucky few, and I am beyond jealous. That town, Ogunquit, I would say is gay wonderland, beautiful people,
Yes.
beautiful
Yes.
food. Shout
I
out
just-
to the main
it's a-
gays.
Yeah, it's a storied gay town because I mean we're just having a kiki here. I follow the Paul Lind account on Instagram. And you young people, if you don't know who Paul Lind is, do some YouTubing. Queer icon, amazing, acerbic, funny, camp, everything. And the picture of the day was him wearing a sweatshirt that said Ogunquit in very like modern 1970s sans serif font, like the logo for Body, which was like a swimsuit store in Provincetown, but it said Ogunquit. And I immediately sent it to Ogunquit saying, this is amazing. And they like sent me like a smiley face back. And I was like, oh, the person running the account maybe doesn't know like how legendary all of this is. But anyway,
I mean,
that's
all of that.
that's a gay tangent. You can put it up for your viewers. It's on the Instagram right now.
There you go. Hashtag follow, hashtag subscribe. If you're the gay 19-year-old who received a message from Carson Kressley about Paul Lind, duck and cover because you're about to be
yes.
given a barrage of messages from listeners. I have to say, Carson, we have a delicious list of topics, but before we go sort of granular, I want to get the most gay version of a game we call This or That out.
Okay.
Carson, you are gay royalty, and I want to hear your take of what you prefer in this or that.
Sure.
Carson, tell me everything. Ballad or up-tempo? What do you choose?
Well, I usually do a bop, an uptown beat, an up tempo, uptown everything.
Yes, uptown beat.
Uptown funk.
What about Drag Race question? Wig reveal or costume reveal?
I think I'm more of a wig reveal. A lot of times I feel like we see the costume reveal coming, and hopefully we don't see the wig reveal coming. And a wig reveal to me is still kind of, I know we've seen it, it's being perfected, but it's still, there's a lot of novelty there. So I like a little surprise.
When the contestant comes out in the boxiest, you can tell it's 15 layers beneath it. Do you feel excited or nervous?
I feel neither. I feel scared. When they have when they have like a big robe on and it's giving Frozen and they're twirling it, I know it's coming off and there'll be one or two underneath that. So cut to the chase.
We're scared of how long the chase is going to take us to cut to.
Yeah, or disappointment.
Yeah, Carson, Rodgers and Hammerstein or Sondheim?
Oh, God, that's a tough one because I am very old-fashioned, and our talk of the Muni makes me think of Rodgers and Hammerstein or Rodgers and Hart or any of them. But I'm going to say Sondheim because he's such a New Yorker and so of our time, or was of our time. Like, felt like the last like real contemporary, I know there's been many others, but he's the last contemporary legend that we actually like was alive and walking around New York City not that long ago.
I 100% agree, and this might be a controversial A to C, but
Right.
I just was on Instagram, and Gary Janetti and Brad Goreski just saw,
Right.
speaking of contemporaries, I'm not saying Andrew Lloyd Webber is of the level
Right.
of Sondheim. I'm just saying that he is still living and has been a big part of the musical
Sure.
theater canon. But they
Yes.
just saw Sunset Boulevard with Nicole Scherzinger. Do you have plans to see this production?
Absolutely. I love that show. I loved that movie. I love Gloria Swanson. I love a Swanson frozen dinner, no relation. So it is on my list. It is on my list for sure. Nicole Scherzinger.
Did you see
I'm
Rosie
always-
O'Donnell's video about Nicole Scherzinger?
No.
Some people thought it was sort of a read because Rosie was being very, very kind by saying how amazing the
Right.
production was, but then
Yeah.
she's saying this Nicole Schlesinger, I can't even say her last name, but this
Right.
Nicole, she was so amazing. I cried when I went up to her backstage, but I just can't believe she hasn't had a stage like this up until now. That she was basically saying like she hasn't done. Her career has not been
Right.
as much of a highlight as Sunset Boulevard is. I think some people interpreted it as she was saying that Nicole
Right.
hasn't not had a career up until now. But I think what she was saying
Right.
is more that Nicole, this is so amazing and it's taken her to this point of her life to really.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that. I'm sure she was being nothing but complimentary. She's such a positive person.
100%.
And I have to agree that while we've loved her, I would love to loosen up my buttons, baby. And we love her career with Pussycat Dolls. And she's had some great acting turns. And wasn't she also she's done some big Broadway shows before. Didn't she do like Aida or something?
Something. She was also like Annie
Or
Live. She
Evita,
was
or
in that. She's done she's done a lot of theater.
what she hasn't done, and what I think Rosie was probably talking about, is like had like the perfect role at the perfect moment to showcase her incredible talent. So this is great. So yeah, it's super on my list. She was a judge on Drag Race one time, and I got to sit next to her for like a day because it takes a long time to film that. And I just love her, and she was so gracious. And she's from Louisville, Kentucky, one of my favorite kind of second homes.
Well, especially as a horse girl, I'm sure you would love a Louisville moment.
I'm there all the time.
Oh, bless her. Well, let's do another this or that. Ooh,
Okay.
speaking of location, cities, Carson, Palm Springs, or Fire Island?
That's a tough one because they are calendarly opposite. Like, you want to be in Fire Island in the summer. It's spectacular. It is some of the most beautiful beaches. I've done the whole gamut, having houses, shares, whatever. It's gorgeous, like physically gorgeous and special. Palm Springs is when you're a New Yorker like me. You want to get the F out of Dodge. And you want that hot, sunny desert weather, but crisp at night and in the morning, so you can play some tennis in your 1970s inspired heart-to-heart togs. Then you want Palm Springs, and they have a fantastic outlet mall. So if I had to just put it over the needle, I would say the Desert Premium Outlets in nearby Cabazon, California, with a Christian Louboutin outlet is going to put me over the edge for Palm Springs.
See, Carson, I love that you have an appreciation for the finer things. Do you, when you want to spend money in New York City, shopping wise, where do you go?
Oh, if I want to spend money and I know I need to get something fabulous or amazing and I'm feeling like I'm going to treat myself, I go to Bergdorf Goodman. It's the only place to go.
Only, and that's what we've been saying. Okay, final this or that, Carson. Most controversial, Hollywood Squares or What's My Line?
Hollywood Squares. Yes, the Paul Lynde of it all.
Full circle.
What's My Line is not as iconic either, and I do like the idea of like trying to like be a charlatan and an impersonator and trying to figure it out, but you can't beat the fast-paced sassiness of Hollywood Squares, which is coming back to television very soon.
Oh, it is.
It is. Rumor has it.
See, I need these gay rumors. Do you have an opinion about what do you think is the winning quality when people, speaking of impersonating, when people do Snatch Game on Drag Race, what do you think is if you were to give, let's say, God forbid I was a drag queen, I look like Sarah Jessica Parker got into a car accident when I do drag, but say
that's who your Snatch Game person could be.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Sarah Jessica Parker at the ER. And you could just say things like, when you got a tough question, say, I don't remember anything until I just heard crash, and you'd be fine. Or,
That's true. That's true.
What's your favorite beverage? I just need an IV right now. Can I just have an IV? It gives you a full on storyline
setting. And you know what? I've got a line already. I would say, I know they say that New York is the fifth girl, but why does she have to be such a bitch?
All the time.
There we go.
Yeah,
Thank you for yes anding.
No.
Okay, so what's the advice that you give a drag queen about to do Snatch Game? Because there's been canonically horrible additions to the form, but also beautiful ones like Jinx, etc. What's the advice?
The advice is, just because you can impersonate somebody doesn't mean that it's going to serve you well. You have to embody somebody and create a storyline. So it is a volley between the queen and Rue and also the other queens. So, I can do a fantastic Katharine Hepburn, like, oh, look, it's over there, the saloons, Marvin, we've got to see the loons. But if you can't make that funny in the setting, you're just going to keep delivering your character over and over again, and you're not volleying with the room. So pick a character like we just did, Sarah Jessica Parker. You could look like her. And then if you can't really do her or you can't do anybody, give them a sub setting like, I'm in the ER. I've just been rushed in from an ambulance.
Yes.
And that is going to inform, and in the back of your mind, you're already in character. It's an improv challenge. It is not an impersonation challenge. And that is where I think people mess up.
Yeah, no, that's such good advice. And I think that that's the joy of Drag Race is watching the improv scenes play out with obviously Rue is so quick, you are so quick. And when a queen is really able to go toe to toe, that's where the magic happens.
Right. And that's who wins the Snatch game. It's not the person who looked most like Maya Angelou, or sounded like her. It's the person that had the best time with Rue and the other queens. That's the person who usually wins.
100%. And,
well,
Carson,
I'm glad we got that off our chests, Eric.
Don't you feel so much better?
I'm levitating.
Oh, everyone, he's lifting on the chair. Head to YouTube to watch.
I'm wearing a sassy swim short.
You really are. And we're so lucky to get a glimpse.
Yeah. It's hot here in Las Vegas.
Who, speaking of Drag Race, Carson has been doing a star turn in the live show.
I have. It's been super fun. And we started this, this Kiki with a little bit of oh, I didn't know you did the live theater thing. I do, and I love it. And there's nothing like a live audience. And if you want to work on your comedy chops or your hosting chops or just being quick and sassy, go host a live show somewhere. And it's something I tell the queens all the time, too, on Drag Race, the ones that are gorgeous but haven't maybe worked the clubs or done working a room, that is a required skill. So I love that kind of audience feedback, and it's been it's been such good exercise for me.
I, again, just the lucky people who saw you do Drowsy Chaperone and Damn Yankees, the lucky people in Vegas seeing you, and a very shameless plug, but this Gay Ass podcast has done many gay ass live shows with some very exciting people. And one day I'm going to manifest that you, Carson Kressley, and I get to be on a gay stage together, kikiing in front of adoring fans.
Let's do some kind of con, either come to Drag Con or
done.
I actually just did this. This is so amazing, and I want to give them a shout out. I'm from Pennsylvania, from the suburbs of Allentown. I am not Amish, but I'm Amish adjacent. Who I also found out Kristen Wiig is also Amish adjacent. I met her at the Emmys, and we had a kiki and found that out. But anyway, I digress. I was recently invited to come back to participate in QueerCon at Penn State University at their Berks campus. And I was just so thrilled that it's still pretty rural and very conservative. Pennsylvania is a Midwestern state, even though it's on the East Coast. It has a very rural population. People are just more conservative. So I was just so delighted that they had a QueerCon at Penn State, and they had me come back and speak. So that's our good humanitarian moment of the podcast today, is that although lots of awful things are happening and being directed towards our community unfairly, there's still some good things happening out there. And young people, I hope and pray, will be our savior.
Yes, yes, yes. And as much as we, of course, have to grapple with the difficulties, whether it's from growing up in places that weren't super nice to us faggotrinis, or the laws that are being passed, but we also do need to celebrate those wins. And baby, Queer Fest, Penn State, we celebrate QueerCon. We love QueerCon, and we are absolutely putting our faith and our hope and our joy into those young gays, queers who are trailblazing. But I do think we need to take a look into the past, Carson. Speaking of your Allentown upbringings, and ask the Gay Ass Podcast question, Carson Kressley, whose fault is it that you're gay? Who do we blame, babe?
I blame Lily Pulitzer. No. It's a combination. I'm going to blame television because that was really, I'm the youngest of three kids. My brother and sister are 6 and 8 years older. They were not home like ever. Like when you're like 10 and your brother and sister are 16 and 18, they're like on dates at proms, driving their Trans Ams around Allentown. Like they are not in the house. So I was, sitting home alone watching a lot of TV. And I think the first moment or the memory that's really like concrete for me is like the $6 Million Man was like the number one show like in 1976 or something when I was in first grade or 77.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned I was Amish adjacent. We were all like Pennsylvania Dutch farm people. So like nobody had like a hairy chest or like a shirt that was open like down to like the navel.
Yeah.
I had never seen anything like this. So to see like a tight bell-bottom clad, swarthy, hairy, gorgeous male model, like international male quality, like hairy man on the TV, I was just like, what is this?
Are you saying that the Amish folk or Amish adjacents were naturally fair and not hairy?
Yeah, not a lot of hairy people in my life growing up.
God, what a travesty. Of course,
they're
it's
very
funny how...
like German and French, so they're not super hairy. Yeah.
Well, it's funny how similar our upbringings could have been in terms of like being in more either rural or less urban, but also I come from a Judaism. I'm a fucking Jew and we're all super hairy. And so when I saw the fair, the blonde, the blue eyed and the no hair, I was like, that's the ideal.
Right.
And
yeah. Isn't that weird?
It's so. Do you find yourself as an adult now still turning your head when you see body hair?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm in my glory because it's very popular right now. Yeah. No, stop now. Keep it professional. Things will get crazy.
I just had to unbutton my shirt just a tiny bit. Just to make sure to. And toda rabah to you and your mishpucha.
Yes. Happy New Year.
It's and Chag Sameach as well. Now, Carson, you have such an interesting upbringing with the older siblings, the Amish adjacent. Do you have one younger sibling? Is that am I doing the math correctly?
No, they're both older.
They're all older. Yeah. I see. So did you find that you were sort of like giving almost only child syndrome, and then did your gayness come out while you were still living in the Pennsylvania, the country of Pennsylvania? Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, I'm a big believer you can only suppress so much. And I didn't really, because I felt like an only child and because I was so young, I didn't really feel societal pressure. So I was doing all the gay things. I was like, oh my God, we've got to learn how to make deviled eggs. And we built a new house. And I was like, I have to talk to you about what kind of custom draperies we're getting. Like, or like picking out my sister's prom gown, like going along. Like, I was the family like tastemaker, and it was kind of embraced. I think they knew that I was like a bit of a savant. So I was doing all the things about taste. When I was, like 10 years old, I was planning family vacations and selecting restaurants to go to. And like, this was before the internet. Like you had to read like a guidebook and like the encyclopedia. So,
well, I feel like for many people, if you have a gay person in your family, or for us, it was always like scary to either come out or it was considered something difficult. But a lot of families like yours would only be so lucky to have a Carson Kressley planning the trips, planning the meals, the drapery. I mean, absolutely stunning. Do you see how they go along with the wood? These families with gays are just so fortunate to have us. They're
blessed. They're blessed,
especially with you.
And then, of course, you do the normal like things where you're just like, oh, like you become like 13 and 14 and like you're starting to be attracted to other boys in your class. And it's like really awful. And there's no outlet because you can't express any of it, or you're bullied. And I did a podcast earlier today, and it's all about, looking on the bright side. They said, oh, who in your family is funny? And I would get this a lot, like from Joan Rivers, she's my spirit animal, or anybody, especially comics, be like, who's the funny one? And I'd be like, not really anybody. My dad had a big personality and was literally a car salesman, owned a car dealership. But none of them particularly funny or zingy or quippy. But I learned that because, by like 7th or 8th grade, like every day, was like, go to the bathroom first and try to dry heave the non-breakfast you had because you're so stressed out about being bullied and picked on. Like, I had a kid who sat next to me who punched me as hard as he could in my arm every day.
Jesus.
For homeroom. His name was David Rock. It's true. And you would try to escape that. And I was like, gosh, how am I going to not literally get beat up? I know if I make them laugh and I throw the first punch, so to speak, I can deflect. So that's the quick, how did you become, sassy and snappy? That's how.
Survival.
And it was survival. And it was, one of those things that becomes a gift later on. Like when it was time to do Queer Eye, I was like, oh, that's what I was, learning this for. So I can thank my bullies and the people who were mean to me for my sense of humor. And laugh all the way to El Bunko.
Hello, hola. I'm reading a book right now that is really coming into my mind right now. It's called The Universe Has Your Back. It's very woo-woo, but I think that what you have done is what this book preaches, which is like, sure, you had to have some armor, potentially of humor or sass, but you also looked at the world as how can I add and you add such a positivity to it that I think that the universe rewarded you with Queer Eye, with all of these incredible, you've shaped so much of queer culture. And I have to say, like, the fact that Queer Eye was 2003 to 2007, and this is before same-sex marriage is legalized. It's before there are, very out personalities on television. It must have been such an interesting time in our American history to be a part of such a gay show. Did you realize at the time that it was changing attitudes towards gay people, or were you just trying to like get through the gig?
A little of both. And thank you for those kind words. I think sometimes people forget how far we've come, and that was a long time ago. It's that show premiered, like you said, in 2003, and there weren't. The only real gay person that I remember seeing on TV that impacted me so deeply was Pedro Zamora on The Real World. And his story was so unbelievable. And I just connected so much with that. And I was like, oh my God, I finally, at least I feel like there's other people like me. And then the whole sadness of his dying of AIDS and all of that, that's always very, very relatable. And put a lot of things into perspective for me. So, but that was the only real gay person that I ever saw on television. Yes, there was Will and Grace, and there were characters, and they were wonderful, and the show did tremendous things for the community as well. But I think we were the first all reality cast of gay people just being gay. I did not think of when I was asked to do it, I didn't really think much of it other than, oh, I guess that's a great way to come out to everybody in the world.
Also,
but to your point, I was just trying to get through the gig. We were all hired because we were experts in our field, great stylists, great interior designer, great, food pro and grooming pros. So I was just trying to do the best job, make this straight guy look incredible and also convey that the way you present yourself to the world can change everything about your life and how you feel about yourself. And in doing that, I think it was really good that none of us had TV experience or TV aspirations. We were just authentically trying to do good. And there's also that paradox of doing good for maybe the person who could have been your bully in junior high. Is extra selfless maybe.
Well, it's funny
all
you
of our
bring
guys
that up.
were fantastic.
Oh, of course. And I think that the show is so well cast with the experts. Side note, my first crush on someone who I knew was gay was Kyan. Of course, our amazing hair expert.
Mm-hmm.
But there was criticism at the time that dealt with the idea of how it was portraying heterosexual men, which I found interesting. In fact, Lionel Tiger is an anthropologist. Here's a quote of one of his criticisms. He said, hetero males are the last group it is acceptable to bash as a class. The homosexual fellows on Queer Eye seem to provide riveting hilarity to especially female viewers. What if there were 5 Swedes telling Kenyans how to live elegantly and fashionably? What if 5 Catholics told Jews how to dress, decorate, and court? The program is degraded and degrading. I find that interesting because there's constantly like this, like,
Yeah,
we
so
can't, oh,
negative.
these poor straight guys. And I think like they're okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to be just fine. I had that same question. So, none of us had done television before, and it was 2003, and the show was coming out. And there's this big thing in LA called TCA, Television Critics Association, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at the Beverly Hilton, and it was the first media we had ever done. I think the show was either coming out like in a week, or maybe it had just come out. Anyway, all of these TV critics had gotten screeners of the show. And it was in the ballroom at the Beverly Hilton. And we, it was our first big LA trip. And all of us were like, newbies fresh off the farm. And it was super fun. And a reporter said, doesn't it feel like you're ganging up on the straight guy and kind of bullying them? Have you ever experienced anything like that? I said, yes, it was called junior high. Next question.
Yeah.
And there was like a big, guffaw laugh in the crowd. And I was like, we're here trying to do great work. And there were criticisms of the show, but I will stand behind it. We were just 5 gay guys being ourselves. That's the thing. We're not portraying anybody else. So if you say like we're bad or we're stereotypical or whatever, you're attacking us personally. So not appropriate. We are doing what we do, and we do it really well. And we're sharing it with this community that straight women have said, please come help us. We need our gays.
And they really needed it. I mean, I find one of, I would say, an unexpected or unintended consequence of having queer people like you on a show like that is it's sort of got the wheels turning of straight men to like, oh, maybe I should, not use all-in-one shampoo and body wash. Maybe I should clean up my bathroom before my girlfriend gets there. I feel like there's now straight men who are really actually taking better care of themselves, which is better for the straight women who are dating them, but makes it hard for us because now we don't know whose dick is actually able to be sucked because they might just be a very well-groomed straight man. If I can make it about me.
I'm sorry. I apologize for doing that. But you do bring up a good point that one of the things we wanted to do was like say it's okay to care about taking care of your skin. That doesn't make you gay. And give straight guys permission to care about their environment and about what they're wearing. Like it's a good thing.
There are still straight people. There are still straight guys, I think, that are like have such gay panic that if they do a certain thing, it's gay. And it's like, sweetie, if you put retinol on, it doesn't mean that you are then a gaping wide bottom. It just means that your skin is going to look a little less wrinkled when you're older. That's all. Yeah,
you're going to be glowy, but you'll still be a bro.
And is that the worst thing, to be a glowy bro watching the Falcons or whoever?
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's go on.
No, I will go. And the second part of your question was like, were you just trying to get through the gig? Yes, I was just trying to get through the gig. Then once it aired and people responded to it, I would, be somewhere, I don't know, wherever, like in the grocery store, like maybe I was like in Kentucky going to see my horses or something. And I would be like at the CVS or something, and someone named Wanda would come up and like, I never met a gay person before. And I was like, have you never been on an airplane? Have you never gotten the highlights? Of course you've met gays. You just didn't know it. But the serious point of that question is that we introduced a lot of people who never knew a gay person to a real live gay person who wasn't playing a character, who was just being themselves on television. And I think at the end of the day, they would say, wow, you're doing great work. You're good people. We're a lot more alike than I realized. Like we're all humans. You just, do things differently in the bedroom, but like we have a lot of common ground. So I think that humanized queer people, hopefully, to the mainstream. And that's the most important thing that came out of that show.
Well, you're speaking to my experience too, because I did not know any gay people, and you are truly one of the first gay people I quote unquote knew, and to be here now is insane. But that aside, it did so much for people that, of course, didn't see us as human. But if as a gay journalist, I have to ask you, can you think of anybody in your past that when you were growing up in Pennsylvania was your first gay person? Do you have anyone that you, either maybe even if they weren't out, but you knew instinctively? Who was the Carson Kressley for Carson Kressley?
I don't think there was anybody, honestly. And there might have been, I would say there maybe be people in businesses that my family would, patronize. Like maybe it was a host at a restaurant who was like a really snappy dresser and had flair. I didn't know what that was, but I knew I liked it.
Yeah.
And there was some kind of like connection there, like, oh, that's fun. Or like, they were just in Allentown, Pennsylvania in the 1970s. There was not a lot of out people who were comfortable even, being flamboyant or whatever they wanted to be. And then you move on to the 1980s, and I'm coming of age. I'm like, 11, 12, 13, going to like your like catechetical class, which is what Lutherans go to like, take Holy Communion. And at the same time, there are articles in the grocery store, tabloids about Rock Hudson dying of AIDS. And I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure that's me. I'm probably going to get AIDS in a couple years and die. Like, I didn't even know that it was from sex, it just would say like gay cancer or something. So when you're 13, you know enough to like put the dots together. And I was just like, oh, wow, this is my future. And I remember going to these like church classes and the pastor saying, you can ask anything in here. You can talk to us about anything. And I was like, oh, no, we're not talking about this. So in the 80s, then you really had a recloseting of people because gays were treated so terribly, out of fear.
Right. Well, that trajectory for you to have gone then from like, of course, deep fear that not even knowing it was sex, I'm going to get AIDS because I'm gay, to then Queer Eye doing the opposite for the community, which is humanizing and giving hope. It's like you really, I mean, God, that's a gay roller coaster if I've ever heard one.
It sure is. Yes. I think that's one of the reasons why Queer Eye, aside from like, I did many, many great things and we taught people that pleated khakis are wrong. The other thing is that it was a great experience for me because, for example, I would go to the Lehigh Valley Mall in Allentown. That was my like stomping grounds. And you buy your Coca-Cola rugby shirts and your Swatch watches and try to be fashionable and cool. And, some of the tough guys would be like, ew, there goes that bag or whatever. There's that queer kid. And then I don't think they even used that word then, queer. Well, they did in a very derogatory way. And then I would go back after Queer Eye, like, it could be like 6 months later, and it would be like, oh my God, there's the queer guy, which is so insane that like just because now that you're on TV, like it's cool. But whatever
it's
works.
a mind fuck, Carson. It's a mind fuck.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. Whether it's a Bravo television series or otherwise. I also find it interesting with this whole idea of your lives in Allentown, New York, obviously doing Drag Race in LA. You did this really great house tour for Homeworthy recently.
Oh, I did. Yeah, thank you.
Oh my God. It's your home on Park Avenue. It is an absolute slay. You've got incredible decor. It's obviously there's homages to your love of equestrianism, but you also have a picture of you with your favorite celeb. Of course, you mentioned Joan Rivers. Can you first tell any of us Judies who aspire to have a primary home and a secondary home, that was your Park Avenue home in New York City. You've got your home in Pennsylvania. What percentage wise, how often are we spending on Park Ave? How often are we getting out of the city?
I moved to New York City the day after graduation in 1991. So I've lived there for almost like 24 years, 25 years. And did all of the, things that one has to do to live in New York City. So like lived in a basement in Saddlebrook, New Jersey, before I moved actually into the city. Shared an apartment with two girls from college, a 1-bedroom. I lived in the dining alcove. They took the bedroom. It was 1991. Our rent was like $1,800 back then. And we each paid our little, like 1/3 so we could live there. And then moved to like a friend's sublet and moved here and moved there. Like you're constantly moving. It's very traumatic. housing in New York has always been like super challenging. So I've had this apartment on Park Avenue since about 2003, maybe. And that has always been home. But the more that you live in New York, the more you realize you need a place to get out of New York because of the intensity level. It's very different from LA or other cities, I find. And I was able to buy, my family had a farm outside of Allentown. It sounds like it would be steel mills and smokestacks. It's not. It's gorgeous. It's like the Blue Ridge Mountains. And my sister lives out there. We've had a farm there since 1924. She has that now and runs it. There's a beautiful house next to it that I was able to purchase. So now it's kind of like one big conglomeration. And it's great. And I love your research that you knew that and you did that. And the Homeworthy tour. Park Avenue has always been like my primary residence. So like that's like 20 years of like tchotchkes and mementos. And when I was published in House Beautiful, like as an interior designer, which is like a major milestone for me, they did the farm, but the New York apartment I think is even like more designed because I've had more time to kind of experiment with it. And it's very autobiographical. It's all the things that I love and photos of people that I love and a lot of high-end textiles and, you know, a terrace and some fun things. I've had some great parties there. Celebrity-studded big gay parties with Kristen Chenoweth and all kinds of fun people would pop in and my gays would gag. And, of course, I'd have, like, just, like, all the hot guys.
Now we're talking, Carson.
They were legendary. I haven't done any since the pandemic. And then I got really pretty new carpeting in my master bedroom. And I was like, oh, gosh, I'm going to have to not have parties because my carpet is too pretty. My primary bedroom, I mean.
Well, Carson, were people going to your bedroom during these parties? And why were they?
Oh, okay. So here's the deal. That apartment is a 1-bedroom and it's about, you know, like 1,000 square feet or something. And it's a circle around the kitchen. So like you can go out on my terrace and come in my bedroom, then come in my bedroom door and come out by my kitchen. And then be on a landing where you see the whole sunken living room. So, it's a circular flow. And I had at maximum capacity, maybe like 100 or 150 people in my apartment. So it was wall to wall.
I can't do the math, but if it's 1,000 square feet, that's
like 1 foot per person, I think.
And everybody's trying to stand on top of Kristen Chenoweth so they can talk to her.
Yeah, exactly.
God, to be at a Carson Kressley Park Ave party.
It was a good one.
I hope you throw more, Carson. You deserve to have a giggle. We just got to protect the carpet somehow.
I know. I'm going to have to get that some kind of plastic or something. I have area rugs. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Yeah, you will. And in addition to Nicole Scherzinger being invited to this one, who's at the top of your list for another party that you would want to throw, celeb or otherwise?
Oh, well, like all my best New York friends they're the core people. And then my guest lists are usually this, like my core friends that I've had since I moved to New York. There's like 20 of us. We're on like, you know, a text thread called Brothers and Sisters. Like it's our core group. We would go to P-Town, Fire Island, whatever. It's girls, guys, our chosen family. They're like the base, you know. Then like I meet like a handful of like hot guys like wherever. They all get invited. Like, oh, I'm having a party. Just must. And then whoever like I'm working with, like it just depends. Like whoever I'm working with at the time, it's like a wide variety. But like in the past, I've had like Kristen Chenoweth, Amberell, Bobby Flay, Kathy Najimy, Caroline Ray. It's just whoever like is in my mix at the time.
So you're saying a list of character actresses is what you're saying.
A lot of character actresses, yes.
By the way, Bobby Flay.
Yeah.
One of the straight men that I don't mind looking at.
I know. There's something very I think it's his accent and how he carries himself. He has a bit of a swagger.
Yeah.
And he's born and raised in Manhattan, but like I get a Queens kind of, hey, what's up?
Oh, yeah. A little rough and tumble.
Let me tell you, he is the nicest, kindest, just most wonderful person. And we've been doing a show together called Barbecue Brawl for like 6 seasons.
Yes.
And it's really his show, meaning like he kind of like created it. But he lets me do whatever I want. Like, I don't know, there's a scene like this past season where he's like, okay, and then you're going to come out and like start the judging. So like, they're like, somebody says action. And then I just walk out of a saloon and I go, I'm out. I'm gay, everybody. I want to let you know I'm coming out. And it's just like, and I would think they would like cut it, you know, because I'm just being stupid and making the crew laugh. It winds up in the show.
Bobby.
So Bobby's got a great sense of humor.
Thank
as well.
you, Bobby. Every time I hear about a straight man who has gay friends or can hang with the gays, it is healing. It is healing to my Midwestern gay soul. And wait, you know what also is healing for me is if I can go down a few of your incredible TV appearances. When you did Celebrity Big Brother, it was my first foray into Big Brother. Truly, I'd never watched it before, but because you were on it, I was like, I'm not going to not watch.
Right.
Carson Kressley become America's favorite house guest, which you were voted.
I did. Yes,
but
thank
let's remind the listeners that you were on the season with Misha Tate, Todrick Hall, Cynthia Bailey, Chris Kattan, Lamar Odom, Teddy Mellencamp, Chris Kirkpatrick. I mean, that was like a pretty very stacked season.
Yeah, I've done all the shows. Like, I did The Apprentice, not with Trump. I did it with Schwarzenegger, who is also like a great guy. I did Dancing with the Stars. I did just all of them. So when they came asking for Celebrity Apprentice or Celebrity Big Brother, I was just like, oh gosh, I hadn't really seen the show, and I knew you had to live with people, and like that's my worst like nightmare. Like, I love coming back, even like in Vegas, like I do my shows, I razzle dazzle, and then I love coming back to my little cocoon and like doing laundry and being alone.
Yes.
So the fact that you had to live with people like on camera 24 hours a day for like 28 days was like, oh, I don't really want to do this. However, it was like January of 2022, maybe, or 21. I forget. It was very close to the pandemic was still a thing.
Right.
And I was just like, what if I make no other television shows for like the next year or 2 or 3 or 4? I was like, I need to A, be on TV, and B, have a paycheck. Right. So I just did the practical thing. I was a practical gal, and I said, yes, of course, let's do it. I get there. They fly you on a private jet because they didn't want you to be exposed to any germs. I was shuttled in like a minibus, like 10 feet away from a driver, got on a private plane, flown to LA, put in a hotel to be sequestered for like 10 days, maybe. So before you're even doing the show, you're alone in a hotel room in like Burbank, getting room, like a cooler of food left at your door, and then they would run.
Fancy prison. You're in Burbank prison.
Yeah. So that was all like really daunting. When the show started, I was like so relieved to like be like at least doing something.
Yeah.
A hotel room 24 hours a day for 10 days is like torture.
There's not enough porn in the world.
No, there's many. I got into crossword puzzles. Like, it is hard to fill a day when you're like doing nothing. So when the show started, I was like super excited I would at least be able to like be, you know, entertaining and work and be around people. And they said, you're going to go in first and kind of be like, you know, the host of the house, and you'll answer the door for everybody. And I don't know why they did that, other than maybe they knew that I knew everybody. I had done a job for Macy's with Cynthia Bailey. I had done a show with Shayna Moakler called Crowned, the Mother of All Pageants, about beauty pageant moms and daughters. I had shown horses with Teddy Mellencamp. I knew everybody. I had done Drag Race with Todrick. I knew everybody except Misha Tate, the MMA fighter, which that was a path that I haven't been an MMA fighter for years. So
yeah, it's hard on the knees. Her. I get it.
It is. So I knew everybody. So I was like, oh, this will be a dream. But I didn't watch the show because I didn't want to really like know how awful it could be. And it was like about lying and backstabbing. I was like, I'm not going to like ruin my career just to like win prize money. So I was just like, let me just be a good person and like try to do my best and also have fun with it. And then winning a couple challenges, which I had no idea I could do, was like the icing on the cake. But it was hard for me because like it's not nice. And also, the worst part for me was that I need to be stimulated a lot. And like, you couldn't, like, I literally, like, I'm reading a book right now. It's about the story of Betty Davis with her own commentary written in the margins. Like, I need books. I need to write lists. I need to listen to music. I need to have a hot bath. Like, I'm a very needy person. So none of that is allowed. No books, no pencil, no paper, no radio, no music, no television, no crossword puzzles, no nothing. And you're
Jesus.
28 days of nothing other than like doing the challenges. And then you're just laying around with people in that, house all day. So it was really hard.
By the time you got out, I'm sure you were like hurting for a Betty Davis book. You were hurting for a bath.
All of that. And they have this thing where like, of course they have like a show psychologist that you could talk to at any time because it is like kind of a mind fuck. And then they said also when you're in the house for like 28 days or however long you're in, when you get released, you'll have an exit interview also with our psychologist because it's sometimes hard to reacclimate. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like living in a house on the CBS lot for 28 days. I will not need intensive psychiatric care to re-enter to my life that I know and love. But you do it and you come out and like 28 days of emails and phone messages or news that maybe someone you liked had died. Like that first 24 hours is really daunting because the world comes at you like crazy. Like all of the media that we absorb, you're not absorbing for 28 days and then like if you read the comments about like you were terrible or you were this or you're that, that's a whole other layer that I try not to get into. But just the reacclimating was more challenging than I thought.
Well, I can't imagine. I think that you have to have not only thick skin, but kind of keep perspective about everything when it comes to being on television,
totally.
especially a show like that. But since we sadly have to end this interview, I just want to make sure. I know, Carson.
We'll do a part two sometime.
Bah oui, bien sûr, j'espère. I need to just find out because I am just personally, Michelle Visage is sort of like a mother figure in my mind. And you worked on Drag Race for so many seasons. Can you just tell me one thing that would either surprise us to know about Michelle Visage or just any of sort of what's your favorite quality of hers? Like, just I want you to say something about Michelle.
She's just incredibly warm and nice and kind. And, when I'm with her, but I also think this is on the show, you get kind of a mom energy. I mean, she has 2 kids and she really cares about people. So I think her role, maybe she comes off as a hard ass on the show. That's her Jersey like directness. But she, just like all of us other judges, wants the contestants to excel and is giving them that feedback for that reason. So I guess just she's got great mom energy.
Love that. And Carson, speaking of energy, I want to end this podcast with the gayest energy possible by asking you the final podcast question. If the world was ending, you could only save one character actress. Who would you save?
Oh gosh, there's so many to save. Oh gosh.
And they all go to your party too.
I know. I would save let's save Kathy and Jimmy. She's a friend and she's so amazing in so many ways.
I was hoping you were going to say her name. I was really willing that. Just picturing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Kathy is huge, and a stunning answer.
Person and a great person.
Oh, we love to hear it. Kathy, we love you. And Carson, I will keep this short, but I'm just going to tell you, you were huge for me growing up as now a professional gay human. You are the blueprint, and it is such an honor to be able to have you here. And I want to thank you for everything you've done for me and all of us gays.
That is so sweet. I'll send you my Venmo.
Oh, please. I will I will absolutely take that
No.
account. Carson, can you tell us
Thank you for that, by the way, sincerely. That means that's the best part of my very long career is meeting younger gays saying like you made my life a little bit easier. So thank you.
It's so true, and I really, really mean it. And can you tell the listeners where they can follow you and what to look out for?
They can find me on all social media at Carson Kressley, CarsonKressley. I'm mostly on the Instagram. It's what I enjoy doing, and I just have fun with it. But it's all social media: Facebook, Instagram, X. So weird. And you can see me on RuPaul's Drag Race. Hopefully news about new seasons coming soon. And you can see me RuPaul's Drag Race live for like one more week in Las Vegas at the Flamingo. You can go to their website. World of Wonder has all the information for all things drag. And you can see me on a bunch of different Food Network shows from Beat Bobby Flay Holiday, and Barbecue Brawl. Hopefully we'll do another season next year. I think it would be season 7. And but follow me on the social medias because I'm always doing appearances all over the place. We're doing some Queer Eye reunion tours, a la, kind of like a Housewives reunion, like, without the hair pulling. We have one in February at the Ocean Casino in Atlantic City.
Oh, yes.
And we've done a couple of those throughout the country at Foxwoods and different places. So be on the lookout for those as well.
Well,
and
everyone,
drag stuff too.
The links to Carson's stuff is in the description. And Carson, you are a perfect guest. And I hope that we get to Kiki again for part 2 at least.
Thank you so much. Stay gay and fabulous, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Carson. Thanks for listening to That's a Gay Ass Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to tag us on Instagram. We're at Gay Ass Podcast. And of course, tag Carson Kressley to let him know what a fucking queen she is. If you want more gay assery, the Patreon is really delicious this week with my husband, Matthew Edward Lummis, giving us a bit of a Halloween look at all the slutty costumes we saw this year. That is patreon.com/gayasspodcast. And of course, follow along on social media and subscribe wherever you listen or watch to podcasts. I love y'all so much. I'll see you next week. And as always, stay gay. Bye. You've been listening to That's a Gay Ass Podcast, hosted by me, Eric Williams. If you want to see and hear more, make sure you're subscribed to us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or Patreon at Gay Ass Podcast. That's a Gay Ass Podcast is executive produced by Eric Williams and produced by Nathanael McClure. We'll see you next week.